Happy New Year! Oh, wait. That was just the countdown clock to the live stream. Welcome, everybody, to this Friday's edition of AVA Live stream in studios. You know me as Joseph.
And I'm Sean.
Are you really?
We'll never know.
We'll find out. I mean, at least I can state that for almost every live stream, you've worn those nifty button-down shirts, so I know you're the legit Sean.
It's comfy, man.
You are not the doppelganger of Sean. You are not Con Cassley. Con Cassley.
That sounds...
Mr. Sassafras. So we're going to start off the live stream with some pretty cool news in regards to some of AMD's technologies and releases. Yeah. They have launched their recent AMD Radeon Vega mobile discrete graphics platform. And this is a pretty big deal because AMD has always been very competitive when it comes to the mobile market with discrete graphics. Right now, I believe Apple is the only one that's actually coming out with a product line that includes the AMD Vega graphics through their MacBook Pro notebooks, right?
I believe so, but something to point out is that what was about 6 to 8 months ago, we started to get AMD integrated GPU tech in certain Intel CPUs.
Yes.
So I imagine that this, where it's only in MacBooks right now, is not going to remain the case for very long. I think we're going to see these become a lot more popular across the board.
I think so, especially like in the HTPC market, because as somebody that started to dabble a little bit in HTPC setups and technology, I cut the cord with cable like 5 years ago, right? I used to use Xbox 360s because they were A, only certified for HTPC cable card use, and B, there was just a lot of platforms around it that made sense. That's no longer the case. So with a lot more platforms available for you to cut the cord with, it's great for companies and manufacturers like AMD to come out with technology like this that's affordable, it's low on power consumption, and it's super powerful. I mean, they're talking about 1080p performance, 60 frames per second at ultra graphics settings. Ultra.
The other thing I find kind of interesting with these is with AMD kind of jumping into this setting, I'm curious to see if we're going to see more small form factor items.
Dude, I hope so. And not...
Because we had EVGA just got those new SFX PSUs and everything, but man, I find an HTPC case that has all the features that you want. It seems to be, at least from what I've seen, one of the hardest types of cases to find.
Why do I sound a little quiet, Wesley? Is that better? Is it because I'm not talking into the microphone? Maybe. I mean, I'm trying not to like obstruct, this full package right here. Is what it is. I mean, I could talk into the microphone like this. Joe's mic is picking him up.
All right, now only one of us can be that quiet. Come on.
I mean, I could be really quiet. Really quiet. Maybe dial us up just a little bit. I mean, I can see that kind of, like it's the volume stuff be kind of low.
Oh, I'm sure it'll probably improve as the stream goes on a little bit for us.
And if not, I can just yell at all of you.
As opposed to what you're usually doing?
Wow, fair enough. Case in point. So kind of to tap on what you were saying, Sean, I really hope more devices start to include at least this kind of technology, if not AMD. I hope AMD, because they've obviously got a niche product that they keep pushing, and it's getting better and better at every release. But could you imagine like a Fire Stick with an AMD Vega Radeon graphics?
See, I'm thinking it the other way. I'm thinking more about like Zotac with the Pascal generation put out, mini or super small form factor PCs.
Sure.
That essentially had laptop class hardware in it, but they were performing incredibly well. So you could
right.
get a box that was, that big, that would play games
wow.
at 1080 at 1440p or whatever.
Sure.
I'm curious to see if your Intel NUCs, your Zotac small form factor systems. I'm curious to see if those pick up any of this mobile Vega market.
They have to, in my opinion. Like people have to continue to push the barrier with small products like this because they become incredibly useful. I was just talking to Alex yesterday about how we needed to replace our front lobby HTPC with something like an Intel NUC because it's smaller, quieter, and uses less power, and we always have that PC on, whether we're going to use it or not.
Oh yeah, that definitely needs updated.
Right. And as far as like the AMD Radeon Vega mobile discrete graphics that we're working with today, there's no official Windows release of these things, although there are a few Windows platforms that we are offering here pretty soon. I know we've offered some of the previous generation previously, obviously, but we're going to kind of add on to that once we get more of these products available through AMD. And
once they stop only going to MacBooks.
Apple's always going to own like the rights to release those kinds of products first, just because of what their focus is. Hey, Rudo.
Hey, Rudo.
Thanks for joining us again. Glad to see you. Yeah, that's about it as it relates to the Radeon Vega.
Yeah, it's coming out. It's exciting. We still need to see a lot more on it before we know for sure.
But a lot more.
At least a very interesting step, especially after we were talking, especially last week, with how rough the Vega standard desktop launch was.
Right.
Hopefully this kind of pulls that out a little bit better for AMD, and this kind of gives them a win in
sure.
the GPU market, because they kind of need one, I think.
I hope, dude, they need that, and we also need more products that are not even Radeon Vega based. We just need smaller products that consume less power and are more powerful. It's that simple. And yeah, apparently your mic has taken a dump officially at some point.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if it's the cable, because it's picking me up just fine. Like here I am, again, on my own, going down the only road I've ever known.
Like
right?
a drifter.
I was born to walk alone.
Can we hear me now?
Just made up my mind.
I'll just do the entire stream pantomime.
You could, or just yell like really loud while I talk ever so softly into the microphone.
Hey guys, how are you?
I think they're doing okay, Sean. How are you?
Guys, we could totally do like in 70s songs when they were doing the chorus.
Nothing.
Uh-oh.
Absolutely nothing. War.
Plug your ears, y'all.
What is it good for? Absolutely nothing.
Alrighty.
How's that working? Nope. Still nothing. So while Sean sits here to try to get his mic working, I'm going to go ahead and just tell everybody a lovely story about Leroy Jenkins. If you don't know who Leroy Jenkins is a man from the originating World of Warcraft days that decided to go into a raid entirely on his own while screaming, Leroy Jenkins! Exactly. I don't know how many of you knew this, but that was actually a social experiment, and the guy that did that was training to be a voice actor. It was one of the very first videos that something was done to go viral with. Nope. Still nothing. I think you're just gonna have to get real close to me, and we're gonna have to share this mic, dude.
Hello, everybody.
Is that better? Can everyone hear him now? Maybe just just share some quality time with me here in the studio. Here. Let's go ahead and just reel that in. There you go.
Welcome to the NPR edition.
This is NPR Radio, back at the studios.
All right, so let's hop a little bit more back into tech. We have some new drive news, which, considering how often or how much everybody's been talking about CPUs and GPUs, this is kind of an interesting deviation from that. So Intel, they released Optane toward, middle of last year, beginning of last year?
Ship it.
Mm-hmm. So they released the 905P, and they did a 1.5 terabyte version. Now, why this is kind of impressive is it's using 3D Point, which is the same tech as in Optane, but it is actually at a drive capacity that is more useful when competing against HDDs and SSDs.
I was going to say, how does this thing stack up against the 970 Evo?
Well, see, that's what's interesting, is spec-wise, it's worse than the 970
Whoa.
Evo. It's slower, but where that kind of gets a little bit murky is that the way drives work is, depending on how you're using them, they're going to run at different speeds.
Sure.
So, for instance, in traditional NAND SSDs, you're going to get stuff like the 500 gig model versus the 1 terabyte model are going to have different speeds. That's going to vary. And the 1 terabyte is going to be a little bit faster, just part of the architecture.
Sure.
3D Point scales linearly, so that doesn't have, a 2 terabyte versus a 1 terabyte is going to have the same level of performance, which is pretty neat.
Yep.
But the other thing is that at low queue depths, which essentially there are different ways to read and write data, or different use cases.
Sequentially, for example.
Right. So with what 3D Point allows the drive to do is essentially at low queue depths, which is where most of us use our systems for like gaming and home use, it is up to about 3 times faster than the 970 Pro. So while its specs and its theoretical max speed are lower, it is functionally a higher performing version of storage. The other thing, the only other kind of oddity about this is that right now it's only available in PCIe add-on cards or in a U2 form factor, so it's not in what you would think of kind of as your normal drives now. But especially for the high-end data center market, this could be a pretty good change.
It is. And just to cut into this real quick, as much as I love being as close to you as we are, Sean, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break to swap over to a new mic and get you up and running again.
Alrighty, be right back, guys.
Bye. Is it going to bring us right back on?
Oh,
and here we go. That was quick.
We are back.
See, this is the advantage to being a solution provider, a leading solutions provider, is that we could take something that would normally take somebody 15 minutes to figure out and get it done in under 2 minutes.
All right. Can everybody hear us, by the way? Give us a little bit of feedback if we're sounding good or not.
I can see us in the audio levels. We're coming through, right?
Yeah, just to make sure.
There's usually, it hurts my ears. Okay. I think we're good.
Yeah, we should be good.
So kind of what Sean was saying, that this Intel Optane 905P is a pretty good alternative price-wise as far as I've seen in the reports. However,
I mean, it is the performance is awesome for high-end data center stuff. It's great. I don't think this is going to be something most people are going to use.
No.
This is kind of similarly to what we were talking about a little bit with the AMD.
$2,200 for 1.5
yeah,
terabyte.
$2,200 is
U2 form
expensive.
factor. That's what you're going to get for enterprise though, because you're not paying for performance. The whole point of enterprise is A, redundancy, and B, it's endurance. You're going to put these things in a data center. You're not going to want to have to send your in-house techs or pay for on-site service to have people to come out to service these drives on a constant basis from failures. So that's why those kinds of precautions are put in place, and that is why the price points fall, because these are going to be sold to huge corporations that are not going to nickel and dime the hell out of the solution.
Yeah, did you see how high the endurance rating on these is?
Dude, it's insane.
So just as an example, if you look at like a 970 Pro that has like a 500 gig or I'm sorry, 500 terabytes written endurance, and that just means over the life of the drive, you can have that many bytes written and read off of the drive before it's considered out of warranty or to the point where it's expected to fail.
Take a big old bite out of it. No pun intended.
From Intel, the 905P, the 1.5 terabyte version has a 27 plus petabyte rating, which is an order of magnitude above any of their competitors. So why this is exciting me, at least, is not because this product specifically is interesting, but something this high-end and fast coming to the data center market, I think, is going to trickle down into consumer in the next couple years.
That's as long as they don't have shortages. Sorry, had to throw that out there.
Well, we're going to be talking about it a couple times today.
Yeah, Rudo, Optane. The first rule about Optane is we don't talk about Optane. Unless, of course, you're going to build a system and don't want to spend a whole lot of money on an SSD, then Optane can actually be very useful. But that's kind of the thing about Optane, at least as it currently stands. It only has a few uses, and I've heard in the pipeline at a rumor that Intel may be in the works of coming out with a much more dynamic response to everybody's feedback for Optane. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and Optane's kind of new ground almost in that it's that midway point between memory, DRAM, and storage like you would get in an SSD. So expect this to develop and change a whole lot more.
Hell yes.
Over the next couple of years, because I mean, when Optane first released, the biggest drive size was a 32 gig M.2.
That's it.
And now 32 is what you got.
Pretty much the same technology. They have a 1.5 terabyte. So hopefully we see this kind of speedy development continue.
Yeah, there are rumors, Rudo, about Micron buying out Intel's memory fab in the U.S., but nothing's been confirmed. We've kind of seen it. Don't know if that's actually going to happen. Would be very interesting if Micron made that move. Micron is, if there was ever like a storage manufacturer that was focused primarily on flash in the same way that kind of Intel has started to with their SSDs, Micron is definitely a force to be reckoned with. Like, they have the reach and the buying power to be able to do something like that, so I'd be really curious to see if that actually happens.
Yeah, actually, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but there's a new Micron product coming out in terms of SSDs.
And what is that Micron product?
They have their first NVMe SSD. So all their older ones were all, like, if you got M.2, it was all SATA based.
They're all SATA, yeah.
This is
SATA more.
Their first NVMe SSD. So kind of crucial if you follow 2.5-inch SSDs, they make like the MX500, which in my opinion is one of the best competitors to the 850 and 860 product line from Samsung. We're seeing them kind of jump into not necessarily the super high-end NVMe market, but we're seeing them jump into that market. So they're not going to be competing with your 970 Evo and Pros. They're more with your budget, like 660Ps from Intel.
We need to have people we need manufacturers to stop competing with one another and just start to innovate again. Because that's the way it used to be in the PC industry. When PCs were still young and the technology was starting to make its way into consumerist markets, they were coming out with new innovative products to shift your attention toward your products as opposed to the other person's products. Like, look at what Microsoft and what Apple did with the mouse. Apple was the first to market with a mouse, and Microsoft took that and they added a second button. Steve Jobs was like, "Whoa, you only need one. You just click things." And old Billy Gates is like, "Yeah, but wouldn't it be nice to have a second button to do other stuff for you too, like fucking shortcuts?" And then Steve Jobs was like, "Whoa." Anyway, that's kind of the focus, you know. And I agree, Rudo. Somebody needs to keep Intel in check and vice versa. Like, somebody's going to keep Crucial in check at some point. And NVIDIA did come out with real-time ray tracing, but people didn't care for it. And that is innovation, you're right. But someone's going to start somewhere. Now, I'm not saying that like people need to come up with things that are innovative that are going to be adopted quickly. I mean, look at electric cars. Electric cars failed in a big way, and then now people are starting to go to kind of hybrids.
Well, electric cars at the time, they had a lot of things going against them. But I think what you're getting at is that a lot of times in our industry now, unfortunately, you're seeing companies, rather than competing to create the best product and then use that to leverage themselves to the top of the heap, it seems like all of the big companies, you know, Intel, AMD, NVIDIA, seem to be putting a lot more into their marketing side of things.
Correct.
And their branding rather than focusing on innovation. I think that's what Joe's kind of getting at, is that it would be great if it got back to the point where companies were competing just to be on the cutting edge rather than competing on the cutting edge and on all this branding, marketing, changing their product names every other year kind of deal.
I mean, it's more or less like Crucial. Intel comes out with their budget SSD. Crucial comes out with their budget SSD. Corsair comes out with their budget SSD. Like everybody's just kind of following the trend, and you always have somebody that's first to the finish line, right?
Intel didn't release didn't up their core count on their CPUs until AMD put a CPU out that was worthwhile.
Right. But you know they had that in their back pocket.
Oh, absolutely.
Something that they just kind of pulled, right? And I'm glad they did. And even though you're right, Rudo, Intel owns 90% of the server markets. They don't need any more marketing, but there is such a thing as sustainable marketing, meaning if you want to keep that number, you have to continue to invest.
Well, and look at how strong the i7 brand became, to the point where, like, my parents, who don't really know a whole lot about PCs,
they know what an i7
recognize the term i7.
Wow.
And with that kind of, it's almost like Kleenex being called Kleenex rather than calling them tissues. That's the level
which a lot of people do.
That Intel's kind of got to,
which a lot of people do,
with the i7, and I think that's why we're seeing their product segment change a little bit right now too. Is I think they're trying to leverage that.
Right. I want somebody to come out with an SSD that's a little bit different, other than like the budget. Like, what if somebody were to come out with an SSD that had the same properties of a CPU, meaning when it's at idle, its read and writes are very low because it simply doesn't need it, but under demand, it has the ability to boost its read and write process. That way, you maintain its endurance over a longer period of time.
That'd be cool.
Maybe somebody come out with an SSD like that. Like, there's just no, I don't know, it's lazy manufacturing to me to a degree. And especially it says something about you as a company when you allow another company to set the trend. You're letting everybody know that they're trendsetters and you're a follower. You know what I mean?
It's not even that they're following. It just seems like Intel has a lot of stuff. And I half wonder if that's kind of a reaction with the 10 nanometer processes. They saw how much trouble they were having with 10 nanometer, and they got a couple new pieces of tech, and they're like, let's keep these in our back pocket until we need to pull something out. Which, I mean,
a lot of companies do.
That would be the non-malicious way of looking at this, and I don't think we're saying any of these companies are doing this maliciously.
No,
it's just kind of an unfortunate trend that we're noticing.
These are our own thoughts. They are not representative of the thoughts of AVADirect and its staff within. That's the whole point of the live stream here, is for you and I to get our thoughts out in the air. And a lot of times it has caused us not to speak to each other because we need to save the material for live. Happened like 3 times today. Like,
yes, it did.
Stop. Don't talk about it. We're going to wait. Speaking of which, Sean and I started to have a topic because Sean wasn't aware until I talked to him this morning about it, that apparently there are some reports that RTX Ti series cards are not doing so hot. I mean, they are doing hot, actually, so pun was intended there, but some people are saying they're starting to crash and fail under certain conditions. What do you think about that, Sean? That's something. You think that's a cause for concern? You think people should calm down a little bit and see what happens? And these are fairly new cards. Do you think this is something that should be happening that soon?
I can see two sides of the coin. To be honest with you, my perspective on it is we haven't seen a good tech launch from any of our major companies in the last like 3 or 4 years. They've all had,
other than Threadripper,
poorly. Threadripper and a couple of the AMDs. That is a good point. But for the most part, things are delayed.
And you can see those signatures. Sorry, not to cut you off, but if you look at those signatures on screen, just so you know, that was done with a thermal scanner on the RTX Ti cards, and that's kind of what we're going to continue to talk about. Sorry, go ahead, Sean.
So on one side of the fence, you're going to have some items that go out broken, and that's just kind of part of business, and it's an unfortunate thing, but even brand new cars sometimes get delivered with issues.
Yeah, sadly.
With that being said, though, this is an NVIDIA product launch that's a brand new technology that was delayed, and allocation was incredibly hard. This was the first that I can remember where the NVIDIA Direct, I don't think they're calling it Founders Edition this go around, but the NVIDIA Direct cards, the Founders Edition cards are more expensive than MSRP.
They're calling them FEs now.
They abbreviated it. You're shipping cards that are overheating and having issues. It just seems like too many issues with one launch. I could kind of see them getting away with 1 or 2, but so many, it's just not smooth.
It's like you and I started to kind of have this discussion and argument outside of it, to where you are very adamant about the fact that you feel like a company should just launch a product once it's ready and they're confident in it. Yes. If they feel like that there's any possible downfalls to doing that, there could be a big issue down the line like this. It's like Microsoft, when they came out with the Xbox 360, they released it knowing that the tension bracket for the CPU cooler was going to pull tracers off the board and cause overheating, and they factored that against what the damage control would cost them, and they decided that releasing the Xbox 360 as quickly as they did and be the first in the market with next gen was worth taking that risk, and they won. Like, that calculation, that risk was correct. So this could be NVIDIA doing the same thing. Maybe
with that being said, though, they won on that generation, but PS4 has been beating the crap out of Xbox One, and I would not be surprised if a factor in that is the issues at launch with the 360.
That's right, and Naruto points out, and that's a good point, and that was the first thing I noticed, that it sounds like that the RTX PCV was just packed with too much, and that there's one failure point, and it's starting to cascade, and that's exactly it. Now, I pointed out the reason that there was that thermal scan image, quite a few of them, on the page that we scrolled through, because what happened was the company that reported this, they had a thermal scanner kind of similar to the one that we have here, and they looked at the back of the PCB, and when they started to see the temperature readings, they thought that maybe that their thermal scanner was off by a huge margin, like 10 degrees. They're like, it's no way these things are running that hot. Yeah. So they popped off the heat spreader, and they looked at the die directly, and they looked at the surrounding memory chips and did direct phase probing, essentially, and saw that, nope, these things are running at like 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is insane for memory chips, dude. I mean, you can run a card like that, but it's going to be a matter of time. It reminds me of when I paid a company, and I won't name them out of respect, to install a water block on my GTX 680 back in the day, and it lasted 5 months. And I was in the middle playing Sleeping Dogs, and it crapped out, and it was because they used the improper thickness of thermal pads between the memory chips and the VRMs and the water block. So my card, keep that in mind, 5 months, my card ran gaming constantly, at least 4 to 8 hours every other day until it died. So a card can sustain that, but for how long is the question. So, I mean, and that's right. Wesley, that's a good point because of the exclusives. Exclusive came out and the gate was focusing on gaming. I get it.
No, I mean, that's definitely true. But at the same time, the point I'm making is if these companies keep seemingly doing releases that aren't going super well, at what point does that start affecting, like it's already
sketchy because they're trying to push innovation that nobody wanted to begin with.
Right. Like, at what point do consumers kind of lose their faith that the new NVIDIA product's going to be any good? And to be fair, and when I say to be any good, I mean to be reliable.
Yeah.
They're almost always at the top of the edge.
Sure. It's just I can't wait till I look back on this like a year from now. Yeah. And whether RTX is adopted and people go, man, were we wrong about this? NVIDIA thinking outside the box and thinking of the future. Like, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. Or it's going to be, try that again.
Yeah, it's either going to be what you said, or it's going to be Apple removing the headphone jack like 4 years too early.
And then selling it back to you because you want it. Casey saw that photo and she's just like, the hell is this? I'm like, yeah, enjoy your Apple product.
Both Wes and Ruru talked about the Xbox, why that, and the PS4, why the PS4 is better selling. Yeah, I think there's a lot of different reasons. I think both of you, the exclusives from Wes, and then from Ruru, the fact that the Xbox One seemed to be launched more as a home theater item rather than as a console.
That's why they
definitely
put
were two of the bigger
jack
ones
on the thing, man.
But by that the other flip side of that is, I knew going in that I would be more likely to buy. One of the reasons I'd be more likely to go with PS4 over Xbox One is just because Sony's hardware is less likely to crap out and red ring of death on you.
There was a couple things for me for the PS4, actually. It used a similar IBM processor that was an x86 architecture that was identical to programming for PC. So they're trying to kill two birds with one stone, saying if a developer is going to spend time on PS4, they can map it to PC or either or and make it very less costly for them to develop. Second thing, they were focused on not pulling the gamer away from the experience. And what I mean by that is if there's an update, if there's a download for something, you don't have to sit there at the home screen and wait. It's like, hey, we're going to download this in the background because we use friggin' an 8-core CPU. So you can go ahead and game while this downloads, and we're not going to stop you. And the jump from game to menu is seamless. On the Xbox One, every friggin' time I power it up to watch TV because I use the HD Home Run app for it, it's like, hold on, there's an update. I'm like, okay, 12 gigs! And then I'm waiting 45 minutes to watch what? RuPaul's Drag Race? Sorry. Tangent over.
I mean, how is that show? Is it good? Are you enjoying it?
Dude, I friggin' hate to admit it. Casey wanted me to get all seasons, and I got like 4 out of 5, and it's hysterical. It's friggin' hysterical. Just to watch, and it's scary too, because if you looked at it and didn't know what you were watching, and you see some of these dudes come out in dresses, you're like, wow, she's pretty hot. But it's a dude, so you're like, I mean, to each his own. Whatever people want to do, like, totally open for it. It's fine. I'm just saying, some of these dudes easily pass off as like very attractive women. So it's a good show.
I feel like we need to take you out. Like, you want to go like chop wood this weekend or something? Like,
chop wood? Do you want to go
manly.
buy a chainsaw? Do you want to look at battle axes?
You sitting here like thoroughly enjoying RuPaul's Drag Race. We might need to.
I didn't say thoroughly. I said it is entertaining.
You didn't have to say it. We can tell.
My eyes tell a different story. My face is up here, honey. I get it. But no, but my point is that Microsoft obviously had a way different focus. That wasn't something that I feel really appealed to gamers. And that showed through the sales numbers. Yeah. And that shows now in the industry, especially as a system integrator and some of our competitors out there. If you have a product that's just not tangible and people don't want, you're not going to have a product that people are going to buy. It's as simple as that. It's not. Things have changed drastically in the PC industry. It's not a matter of they build a PC for you. Here, do it. It's you have to be able to have some sort of an addition to the value that you offer, other than the fact that you build a PC. Because frankly, really anyone can build PCs nowadays. You know what I mean? And that just it is what it is.
So what I'm curious to see, talking about this in a year. So right now, and I fully expect my opinion to completely change on this, but now,
Kyle.
RTX to me seems like a product that they should have put in a Titan and delayed it another generation.
Kind of tested the waters, the higher class of
test the
purchase.
Waters.
Yeah, I can see
maybe
that.
Have developers develop more games at launch. I feel like it's gotten off to a stumble of a start, and we're not sure how it's going to turn out. I would be curious. I would have been curious to see what would have happened if they would have done kind of what they did in the past, and that's where they start with the Titan product line and then bring things down.
Right.
Curious.
No, I maybe they just had the confidence that it wouldn't be a problem. Maybe because of their statistics, right? They felt that they were going to be able to have a fair amount of adoption for the product to be able to work out those kinks and then like ship out a wave of products. Because like some people were claiming that a lot of the Nintendo Switch consoles were releasing with screen problems, and maybe that was why Nintendo was just slowly releasing consoles out to like, okay, let's get some interest, let's push some sales, let's get some demand. In the meantime, we're going to come out with a screen fix, have a different screen supplier, and then boom, here we go. Here's your supply. Have at it.
Do you remember when Nintendo's weird product launches were like unique?
Yeah.
Now everybody's doing it.
No, I know, and it's like Nintendo, like they caught a whole bunch of crap because people felt that they were faking the demand and faking the shortages. And rumor was that there were a few people on staff at a few companies that were stating like, I'm standing in a warehouse right now next to like 6 pallets of these Switches, and we are told specifically from a certain party that we are not to stock more than like 6 at a time every week or something like that. And it was just messed up, if that's true. We don't know for sure, but it's a possibility. Anyways, so in closing for the RTX cards, I feel like that if my opinion is that if NVIDIA knew that these cards were going to have possible heat problems, it sounds like what they were trying to do was lean on add-in board partners to come up with solutions, which is why, you can't find a blower-style card anywhere right now. It's all double and triple fan setups, and I should note that the card in that article is not a 2.5 slot card. It's a 2-slot card, so it makes sense. The density is less. I feel like NVIDIA should have made like the TI cards liquid cooling only then, if they knew. Because Intel, and this is what I was telling you earlier, at the launch of, I want to say it was X58, it was the first HEDT processors that Intel started doing that were Core i7 only, like the 920s, the 940s, 960s, 980Xs, 990Xs, 970Xs. When Intel was giving everybody a brief on the product, it was the first time you had 4 DIMM slots on each side of the CPU socket, okay? And Intel themselves were coming out with their own branded liquid cooler and said, we recommend liquid cooling with these because of the clearance for the DIMM slots.
Yep.
So, and NVIDIA should have kind of taken note with that and said, hey guys,
but if you can buy done that,
you can buy these coolers the way they are, but we recommend you do it this way instead.
That would have messed up their MSRP too. Like I can kind of see why NVIDIA didn't, because on one side of the fence, you need the performance. That adds like $100. Like so between like the hybrid 1080 Ti, which I think is EVGA's AIO model, right? To the Titan, or I'm sorry, the 1080 Ti like Black Edition. That's about $100 price difference, and I feel like a lot of that's carried by the AIO. So I wonder if that may be factored into it, like just straight costs.
I mean, probably is. I wouldn't doubt it. I'm sure that, because of the price of the cards, I'm sure it's not all inflated. They probably invested a butt ton of money into getting these cards to market as they did. But there's a part of me that feels like that